The story begins with a teenager living on the magic continent, working at a bar to help his mother. The thing is, the boy really doesn't like the idea of working in a bar for the rest of his life. What he truly wants is to become a demon master and grow as powerful as Feng Queen, whom we'll just call Maximilian to avoid confusion. Before we continue, let's quickly go over the lore of this world. In this series, most people are born with spiritual power. This power lets them do things like shoot colorful blasts, heal wounds, move objects without touching them, and much more. However, the story never really explains if everyone has spiritual power, or how rare it is to find someone who does. Beyond that, there are also the Masters, who instead of using spiritual power, use something called Eudemon power. And what exactly is Eudemon power, you may ask? Well, I'll explain it better later, but for now just keep in mind that it's like spiritual power, but stronger. With that knowledge in place, it's time for a flashback. Many years ago, the Magic Continent was ravaged by a war between two clans, the Good Clan and the Evil Clan. The Good Clan ruled over the entire continent, but one day the Evil Clan decided to invade and take everything for themselves. For a long time, both sides clashed violently, until one day Maximilian appeared, a demon master from the Good Clan. All on his own, with sheer will and guts, he defeated the Dragon King, who was the leader and most powerful warrior of the Evil Clan. Jumping back to the present, we see that our protagonist dreams of becoming a demon master as powerful as Maximilian himself. But there's just one little problem. He has absolutely no spiritual power whatsoever. Even so, the boy openly shares his dream with the customers in the bar, until one day, a blonde guy shows up. He mocks the protagonist in front of everyone, pointing out that he doesn't even have a shred of spiritual power, and of course, everybody laughs at him. But strangely enough, despite this rocky first encounter, the protagonist and the blonde end up getting along, to the point where the blonde even asks him to accompany him home while carrying some drinks. As they walk and talk casually, the blonde mentions that the Academy of the Good Clan has opened enrollment, giving people the chance to become Eudemon masters. But he clarifies that he doesn't want to pursue that path. He wants to become a demon master and is thinking about taking the entrance exams. The protagonist tells him he wants to try out too, but the blonde immediately shuts him down, reminding him that not only would he fail for sure since he has no spiritual power, but there's also about a 30% chance he could die in the process. And while the two of them are talking, a group of men dressed in black is chasing after a mysterious girl. At some point, several of them rush past the blonde and the protagonist. The protagonist, thinking they're spies from the Evil Clan, decides to follow them. Yes, this kid with zero spiritual power wants to go fight professional enemy spies. In the forest, however, it's revealed that things aren't what they seemed. The men chasing the girl weren't the bad guys. The truth was that the girl herself was actually the villain, an undercover spy from the Evil Clan. But since the protagonist had no idea she was bad, he tried to defend her. She was actually a spy from the Evil Clan, but since the protagonist didn't know she was bad, he tried to defend her. The girl took advantage of this moment to escape, leaving behind a plant-type demon. That demon slaughtered all the men from the Good Clan and nearly killed the protagonist as well. But just then he suddenly heard a voice inside his head, and the next moment he transformed into a demon himself, crushing the plant monster before collapsing unconscious. Meanwhile, the girl ventured deeper into the forest and eventually ran into a punk-looking guy straight out of the 80s. As expected, this punk was also a member of the Evil Clan. The girl told him that thanks to her spying work, she had discovered that the Good Clan's academy had reinforced its security and was opening enrollment much earlier than usual. Hearing this, the punk concluded that it must be because someone very important was going to join the academy that semester. He then ordered the girl to disguise herself as a man and infiltrate the academy to search for the king, since the king hadn't actually been killed, but instead had been sealed inside some random person. And that's how Eudemon Quest begins, summed up in just a couple of minutes. Before continuing, if you like this anime, please don't forget to like and comment so my video gets pushed faster by YouTube and my hard work doesn't go to waste. Now, let's continue with the recap. After the protagonist fainted, he had a strange dream of a burning city where two demons were locked in a brutal fight. When he woke up, he was back at home, where his mother immediately scolded him for sleeping overnight in the forest. On top of that, she told him to get ready because later that day, he had a blind date with his possible future wife. The protagonist begged his mother to give it a rest, saying he was still too young to get tied down and that what he really wanted was to become a demon master. His words didn't convince her, so she tied him to a post with a rope to stop him from sneaking away. After she left, the supposed future wife arrived, but it turned out to be nothing but a muscle-bound fanboy. Right then, the blonde also appeared, telling the protagonist he could join him for the admission exam at the academy or stay stuck there tied up. Obviously, the protagonist chose to go with him. On their way, the protagonist accidentally bumped into the spy. She was furious, thinking he had survived the plant demon, which was supposed supposed to have killed him. The last thing she wanted was for him to enter the academy and risk exposing her true identity, so she shoved him and the blonde aside, slipped into the exam grounds first, and sealed the door. But her trick failed because the blonde had friends guarding the back entrance who let them in. Once inside, the protagonist tried to confront the spy, but then a purple-haired woman appeared, the teacher in charge of the exam. She announced the first test. Everyone would enter the forest and capture a rank 3 monster. Such creatures weren't extremely dangerous, but they weren't harmless either. The portal opened, and as the group entered, the spy secretly cast a spell on the protagonist's back. The effect? Every time he approached a monster, he would give off a rotten stench that scared them away. At first, this seemed like a cruel curse, but it actually saved his life. After a long time failing to capture anything, a massive magical tiger appeared, ready to devour him with fries and a liter of soda. But when it got a whiff of his smell, the beast gagged and ran off, though not before badly injuring his leg. This is when we meet the protagonist's romantic interest, Xiao, a pink-haired girl from the Sword Clan, who healed his injury. But soon after, the purple-haired girl from the same clan arrived and took Xiao away. Back in the test, only the first 200 people to capture a monster would advance. By then, 191 spots were already filled. The protagonist was desperate, but then he used his stench as bait, luring the tiger into a trap and knocking it out with a giant rock. He tied it up and dragged it back. But of course, the spy wouldn't make it easy. She used an animal transmutation spell, turning the huge tiger into a cute little creature. Everyone mocked him, saying it couldn't possibly be rank 3. But the teacher examined it, realized it had been cursed, and confirmed the protagonist was telling the truth. He passed the first phase. The teacher then led the candidates to a fog-covered bridge, announcing the next test. Only the first 50 to reach the other side would pass. The trial began, and everyone rushed forward. Meanwhile, the spy summoned a swarm of green critters to sabotage the protagonist. Later, when the protagonist's group came under attack by the creatures, chaos erupted. But Xiao, the pink-haired girl, had a clever idea: crawl quietly on all fours to slip past them. Against all odds, it worked, and the Sword Clan members, the blonde, and the protagonist advanced this way. But then they encountered a massive green monster. They thought the crawling trick would work again, but it didn't. One Sword Clan member was instantly turned to stone, while the purple-haired guy blocking the way survived. The monster unleashed a shockwave that petrified nearly everyone. Luckily, Xiao cast a barrier that protected her and the protagonist, but the beast shattered the shield and was about to devour them when suddenly the protagonist slipped into a strange astral plane. Inside that strange astral plane, the protagonist encountered a mysterious aura sealed within him. This aura told him, "Listen, buddy, if you free me from this not at all suspicious seal inside your body, I'll give you some real power, something strong, something awesome, so you can become all-powerful." The protagonist was almost convinced, about to break the seal, but paused for a moment and asked, "First, who are you? Second, I'm not your buddy. And third, why should I care?" The aura simply replied that none of that mattered. The only important thing was that if he didn't break the seal, both he and the pink-haired girl would die. Out of options, the protagonist shattered the seal. This was both the best and the worst decision. Best, because the strange aura took control of his body and easily crushed the giant green monster, sending it flying like in a soccer match. But worst, because remember how I mentioned long ago that the evil clan wanted to conquer the magic continent, led by their king, the Dragon King? Well, it turns out they hadn't killed him back then. Instead, they sealed him inside the protagonist's body. And now, by breaking that seal, the Dragon King was released once more, though weaker than before. With the protagonist's body under his control, the Dragon King devoured the giant's spiritual pearl and then tried to drain all of the pink-haired girl's spiritual power, since her pink-colored magic was rare and precious. She was about to be finished, but at the last second, the Dragon King was sealed back inside the protagonist's body again. And who did the sealing? Two figures appeared. Maximilian, the very same man who supposedly defeated the Dragon King years ago, and his right-hand woman. Honestly, I don't even remember her name, and she isn't too relevant until the later episodes anyway, so I'll name her when the time comes. After resealing the Dragon King, Maximilian decided it might be a good idea to keep an eye on the boy who now carried his worst enemy within him. A little slow in the head, Maximilian wasn't exactly thinking ahead. To cover everything up, they erased the memories of both the protagonist and the pink-haired girl. As for the others, they were all restored from their petrified state. The next morning, the teacher told everyone they had passed the previous test since the giant monster hadn't actually been part of the exam. After that, the students officially entered the academy. After entering the academy, the students weren't yet considered full members but only aspirants, since one last trial remained. They were introduced to their new teacher, a quirky little yellow fellow, who assigned each of them dorm rooms. At one point, the spy accidentally mixed up her room with the protagonists and knocked him out cold with a piece of wood. The next day, the yellow teacher gathered everyone to explain the final test. Each aspirant would receive a pouch containing a random number of coins. The twist? To To pass the test, they needed 1,000 coins. And of course, no pouch actually contained that many. This meant the aspirants had to fight each other to collect more coins. There were 3 key rules. First, the test lasted 8 hours, so they had to collect coins within that time. Second, a safe zone existed where attacking others was strictly forbidden, but each person could only enter it once every 4 hours and stay no longer than 15 minutes. Third, not only first-year aspirants could join, older ones who had failed previously were also allowed to retake the test. This was crucial because the punk from the evil clan had sent 2 agents, a green-haired guy and a red-haired girl, to infiltrate by posing as older aspirants. With the rules clear, the coin pouches were distributed. Remember when I said none contained more than 1,000 coins? I lied. 1 pouch did. And of course, it ended up in the protagonist's hands. Immediately, everyone began chasing him. To escape, he scattered coins along the way, buying himself time. But soon, he ran into a group of older aspirants guarding the safe zone entrance. Since this trial had no restrictions, they were ready to kill him outright. Just when it looked like he'd die for the 3rd time in this series, the protagonist suddenly began dodging their attacks and even fighting back. How was this possible if he had no spiritual power? The answer? When the Dragon King had taken control of him in the previous test, he'd eaten the giant monster's core, and now the protagonist was tapping into that power. Still, because he was terrible at handling spiritual energy, the powers quickly faded, leaving him helpless. He fell to the ground, and the spy swooped in to steal his coins. Meanwhile, the punk's green-haired and red-haired agents continued their mission to locate the vessel of the Dragon King. Their method was simple. They used a pink orb. If your body exploded into tiny pieces when exposed to it, you didn't have the Dragon King. If you didn't explode, then congratulations, you were the vessel. Easy and efficient. The problem came when the green-haired agent tested Xiao, the protagonist's pink-haired waifu. Seeing this, the protagonist grabbed her and tried to flee toward the safe zone. But before reaching it, the red-haired spy immobilized them with magic. The green-haired one prepared to blow them up with magic bombs, but at the last second, the protagonist's powers returned, allowing him to deflect the attack. Furious, the green-haired agent created even bigger bombs. Right before he could turn the place into Hiroshima, the protagonist accidentally touched the pink orb and was pulled once more into his astral plane. Inside, he discovered that the orb housed the so-called Dragon God, but before it could recognize him, the Dragon King appeared, warning the Dragon God not to interfere. Terrified, the Dragon God obeyed, since despite its title, it was weaker than the Dragon King. The Dragon King revealed he was secretly working on a plan to break his seal, but to succeed, he needed the protagonist alive. So he ordered the Dragon God, let's call him the Purple Dragon, to avoid confusion, to protect the protagonist. Not wanting to become Dragon Kebab, the Purple Dragon agreed. He woke the protagonist from his trance and bluntly told him, "Your magical talent is garbage. If you weren't the protagonist, you'd be sweeping floors in a public school. But fine, I'll help. Here's some armor. It'll give you plus 25 magic resistance and let you channel the giant monster's power once every 12 hours. With that, he vanished. But the villains realized the truth. The protagonist carried the Dragon King. How? Because the sacred armor given by the Purple Dragon could only be bestowed upon someone recognized as its master, and the only way that recognition could happen was if the Dragon King was inside him. Otherwise, the boy would have exploded into fireworks of guts. With their suspicion confirmed, they tried to kidnap him. Just then, the yellow teacher arrived, immobilizing them for breaking the safe zone rule. As the protagonist explained in a handy little diagram, attacking from within the safe area was forbidden. The trial finally ended, and the protagonist didn't have a single coin left. You might be wondering, what were the coins even for? Well, after the test, the yellow professor gathered the aspirants in front of a massive door. This was the door that recognized a true demon master, capable of awakening a person's eudemon power. And speaking of powers, remember at the start when I explained spiritual power versus eudemon power? Spiritual power is the basic energy people are born with, while eudemon power is like an upgraded version. It manifests in color, making it stronger, or at least that's how it's supposed to work. But of course, nothing's ever that simple. To open the door, you needed 1,000 coins. The few who managed were the albino boy, who gained pure black, the spy, who gained light green, the purple-haired swordsman, who gained light purple, the pink-haired girl, who gained simple pink, and the blonde, who gained pure yellow. And as you've already guessed, the protagonist was not among them. He was ready to return home to work in his mother's bar with his muscle fanboy fiancé. But then, the purple dragon whispered to him, reminding him he had left 2 spiritual coins in his pocket. At first, the protagonist wasn't convinced, but eventually he tried. He placed 1 spiritual coin into the door, and miraculously, it opened. His power, however, was colorless since he lacked true magic. The other aspirants were furious. No one even knew spiritual coins existed, and they accused him of cheating. Just then, the Academy's vice director appeared and calmed everyone down. Later, the spy reported to the punk that the protagonist was indeed the vessel of the Dragon King and must be protected at all costs. The next day marked the start of classes, and the first task was to acquire a weapon. The yellow professor led the students into a strange chamber where each person went to an island corresponding to their power's color. To everyone's surprise, there was even a colorless island for the protagonist. There, he encountered some floating fire wisps and ended up with a wooden stick as his first weapon. Not impressed, he traded his last spiritual coin for a new item, an artifact that functioned like a Minecraft-style inventory, allowing him to store items. That night, a group calling themselves the Pure Clan attacked the new students to steal their weapons. They ignored the protagonist, even pitying him for only having a stick. Classes continued normally, and about a week later, the professor introduced the class to the strongest second-year student, a green-haired fighter. The professor had him spar against the albino and the spy, and the fight was evenly matched. Then the blonde and the protagonist joined in. The protagonist managed to activate his powers, and using his inventory ability, he stole the green-haired student's cloak, revealing his shocking secret: he had 4 arms. From now on, we'll call him 4 Arms, since green-haired already belongs to someone else. Enraged that his secret was exposed, 4 Arms tried to kill the protagonist. The professor stopped the fight, but that wasn't the end of it, because along with exposing him, the protagonist had accidentally stolen a meteor stone hidden in his cloak. Pedro, the albino boy, was actually the leader of the Pure Clan, and he had tasked 4 Arms with retrieving that stone, which was crucial to their clan. So when the protagonist returned the cloak, he unknowingly kept the stone in his inventory. 4 Arms believed the theft was intentional and swore to kill him in several painful ways. But first, they had to settle things in an official duel. The bet was simple. If the protagonist won, 4 Arms would leave him alone and even give him his dorm. But if 4 Arms won, he'd be allowed to search all of the protagonist's belongings, and the protagonist would be expelled from the academy. The duel began with the protagonist running in circles. Desperate, he asked the purple dragon how to activate his powers, and the dragon told him they only triggered in moments of real danger. So, when 4 Arms attacked seriously, the powers awakened. The protagonist dodged most blows, though not all, until 4 Arms went all out, crushing him relentlessly. At the last moment, the purple dragon conjured a barrier to protect him. 4 Arms noticed it was the shirt the protagonist wore, so he ripped it off. But the purple dragon used that chance to unleash a magical electric strike, stunning 4 Arms and giving the protagonist victory. As a result, the protagonist moved into 4 Arms' dorm. It turned out to be more like a house with 2 double rooms, so he shared it with several classmates. The spy quickly took the chance to move into his room, since she was also tasked with guarding him, while the blonde ended up rooming with the albino. Meanwhile, 4 Arms was brutally punished for losing to the protagonist. Yet the Pure Clan wasn't finished. They still wanted the meteor stone, and now they had even allied with the purple-haired swordsman. That night, the protagonist discovered that he really had stolen the meteor stone without realizing it. Even more shocking, he also found another meteor stone hidden within the gambler's tablet he had been given earlier. The protagonist decided to fuse the 2 meteor stones, creating a strange glowing orb. But just then, the spy woke up and sneaked into the forest to meet with the punk. The protagonist followed her, but she managed to slip away, at least from him. She couldn't escape the albino, though, since he was actually a counter-spy from the academy tasked with monitoring shady activities among students. At one point, the spy collapsed from overusing her spiritual power, so the albino let her go. Regaining some strength, she began absorbing energy from the forest, but the protagonist interrupted her recharge, causing her to faint again. Feeling responsible, he carried her back to his room. He still believed the spy in her female disguise and the cloaked figure were 2 entirely different people. While watching over her, the protagonist noticed a small gem glowing on her forehead. Curious, he touched it and was thrown into a vision of a burning house where he saw the spy's tragic past. When she awoke, she bound him with plant magic and placed a seal on him, ensuring he could never reveal anything about her identity to anyone. The next day, the protagonist met with the pink-haired girl and asked her about the spy's female form. As he recalled the vision, he remembered the name Rodriguez. He told the pink-haired girl that the one he was looking for carried that surname, but this triggered the spy's seal, nearly killing him on the spot. Fortunately, the pink-haired girl healed him. Soon after, the students were sent into the forest for an activity, but the purple-haired swordsman, secretly aligned aligned with the Pure Clan, gave the protagonist the wrong map, leading him straight into an ambush by two Pure Clan members. Thanks to the Purple Dragon's help, he managed to survive, though drained of nearly all his energy. Exhausted and lying on the ground, he was approached by a mysterious masked man. This stranger bluntly told him that his natural talent was terrible, so bad he could barely handle either the bug's power or the Purple Dragon's. If he kept forcing it, he'd die. But there was a solution. The masked man asked about the meteor stones, and the protagonist explained they had merged into a strange orb. The man revealed this orb was actually a key to one of the sacred weapons used to create the barrier around Maximilian's academy. Specifically, it was the key to the Dragon Billing, one of 3 sacred artifacts. With Dragon Billing, the protagonist could unlock his true potential. The masked man patched him up, then left, warning that more enemies from the Pure Clan were on their way. Later, the blonde and the spy found the protagonist in terrible condition, but they also ran into Pedro, the leader of the Pure Clan. A fierce battle began, balanced at first, until the punk's agents showed up. The red-haired girl immobilized the protagonist, allowing Pedro to seize the key. He was ready to kill them all when the punk's agents suddenly betrayed him, helping the group escape. Pedro was left enraged, but the punk's followers convinced him to cooperate with the evil clan. They promised him what he wanted most, the Academy of the Good Clan. With the Dragon Billing, he could amass absurd power and deliver such a crushing defeat to Maximilian that the Academy itself would fall under his control. Realizing he had no better options, Pedro agreed, and together they staged his capture, part of the evil clan's plan all along. But the big question remained, what happened to the Dragon Billing key? It ended up in Maximilian's hands, and yet somehow the masked man managed to steal it and give it back to the protagonist. At first, the protagonist didn't want to take it, reluctant to steal the sacred weapon. But as days passed, his situation grew worse. To make matters even harder, the Chunin exams equivalent were only a couple of days away. He desperately needed more power. That's why one night, under the cover of darkness, he met with the masked man in the forest, ready to break into the Dragon Billing and claim its strength. The masked man used the protagonist's key to reveal the hidden sanctuary where the Dragon Billing was kept. While he held off the guards, the protagonist slipped inside, stole the Dragon Billing, and gained an absurdly overpowered ability. But by doing so, he also weakened the Academy's protective barrier, a massive mistake that allowed the punk to teleport his forces in for a full-scale invasion. Before the coup began, the protagonist still managed to breeze through his exam fight like a tutorial battle. Then, the evil clan launched their attack, slaughtering everyone in sight. The punk tried to kidnap the protagonist, but Maximilian arrived just in time and wrecked him. For a moment, it seemed everything was resolved until the vice director stabbed Maximilian in the back. Turns out she had always been evil, the adopted daughter of the Dragon King himself. Not only that, the masked man who had given the protagonist the key was nothing but a puppet controlled by her. She was the true mastermind behind the Dragon King's release. Her plan was nearly complete. Thanks to the protagonist absorbing the Dragon Billing, the Dragon King began breaking free of his seal and started consuming the protagonist's weapon from within. The process would take about 4 hours, so the evil clan, allied with the Pure Clan, took the protagonist to an ancient ruined temple where the possession could finish safely. The Good Clan launched a counterattack, but in that zone, the evil clan held the advantage. They controlled zombie-like cyborgs roaming everywhere. Meanwhile, inside the protagonist's soul, his willpower was fading fast. At the last moment, the spy turned good and entered his astral realm to help. With her encouragement, the protagonist awakened his true power. His color wasn't colorless after all, but white, the sum of all colors. This meant he could use every Eudemon power type, making him completely broken. Together with the spy, he fought against the Dragon King, and for a while they held their own. But then the Dragon King unleashed his domain expansion, becoming monstrously stronger while absorbing any spiritual power used against him. The spy sacrificed herself with a powerful spell to save the protagonist, but in doing so, the Dragon King devoured her soul. Enraged, the protagonist poured out a reckless amount of spiritual power, landing heavy blows on the Dragon King. But all of it was absorbed, healing his enemy instantly. Forced to fight without power, he was beaten down brutally. In desperation, he brought up the spy's past and revealed she was from the Rodriguez family. That triggered the seal she had placed on him earlier, nearly killing him. And since his death meant the Dragon King's death, both were on the brink. At the very last second, his allies managed to save him. In the end, the Dragon King was resealed inside the protagonist once more, along with his stolen powers. The protagonist also lost the Dragon Billing's ability. The evil clan retreated to their base, where it was revealed that now the one called the Black Moon King would take charge of freeing the Dragon King. And with that, the anime comes to end.